Okay, welcome everybody to the land contracts block. This is the session 3. Now, tonight's festivities, what we're going to be doing, and you're going to be very pleased, it's not going to be me talking all night and sending you to sleep this week. It's going to be more about you. And the first part of tonight's session is some revision questions, quite very similar to what we did last time. Where we're basically reviewing some of the content that we did from last week's lecture. The second half of the lecture tonight, of the lecture itself, is I'm going to get you to do an exercise on filling out a contract for the sale of land. Okay. Now, I'll be giving you some instructions. Now, I'm not going to be giving you all of the searches. There's a lot of searches in this subject. As this is the first time that you're actually going to be filling the contract out, I'm going to be giving you only a very small amount of documents, so that you're not going to get confused and get misled by all the number of pages that you've got. So, if essentially the second half of tonight, you'll be filling out a contract and getting a little bit of practice. As far as that is concerned, it's really about practice, and to be honest, I'm hoping you might get 50%. Right, when you fill out the contract for the first time, okay? I'm not expecting miracles in any way, shape or form. It's about practice. And by the time you do the second one, which will be in a few weeks' time, you'll probably find, because you're more familiar with it, it'll be much easier for you, okay? So what I'd like you to do is start these revision questions first, very much like last week. Prepare some answers in relation to each of the questions, then I'll go through the answers with you. Distance students, if you look on the discussion board tonight, you'll see the questions listed in tonight's outline. I'd like you to actually please have a go at the questions before you listen to us going through the answers, because that way you'll get the most out of it. Okay. I'm just going to pause the recording while you do this work. Okay, so now we've got the first question. A person has to be registered under the Conveyancers Act to carry on a business as a conveyancer. True or false? True. I hear true. I hear false.
False. Personal company.
Well, the answer is true. Okay. Okay. What section?
5.
Section 5.
Section 5 of which Act?
Conveyancers Act.
Conveyancers Act. Section 5 of the Conveyancers Act.
Page 23.
And the notes was page 23. Okay, everybody got that? A person must not carry on business or hold himself or herself out as a conveyancer unless registered under the Act. Okay. Next one we've got. The same thing, if the person was a company, it's the same thing. They still have to be registered.
Yes.
Just to clarify that. The next one we've got B. A person that carries on a business as a conveyancer does not need professional indemnity insurance. Now let's spread the love. Some of the quiet ones. True or false? Are you sure?
Yes.
Yes, okay. So you got false, have you? What are you going to back yourself up with?
Section 9.
Section 9, I hear. Of what?
Section 9, subsection 1 of the Conveyancers Act.
Conveyancers Act. Okay, good. So, great. You've got the sections and you've got the Act. Okay, and what in our notes, where do we find the answers for that? 26 and 27. Thank you, in our notes. Fantastic. Next one we've got. I'm just going back on that. Just note Section 9.2. A conveyancer's registration is suspended for any period for which the conveyancer is not insured. Bit of a worry. Okay, number C we've got. If a person carries on a business as a conveyancer but is not registered as a conveyancer, then the sanction set out under the Conveyancers Act is community service. You sure? You should. It's a fine, is it?
Yeah.
What's the fine that we've got then?
50,000.
Oh, hearing 50 grand. But okay, I'm jumping the gun here. My mistake, and I'm being naughty here. What was the section of the Act that tells us that? Section 5. Which Act again was it? My memory's terrible. Conveyancers Act. Excellent. And so what was the fine again? $50,000?
That's what you said.
That's what it is?
You said it's gone up from 20,000.
Yep, it's gone up from 20, absolutely.
First,
Yep.
second, and third plus jail.
Okay, so, yep, you're quite right. 50,000 for a first or second offence. It's 50,000 and or 12 months jail for a third offence.
And the company's 200,000.
Good. A company is 250,000.
Oh, 250. Oh, well, thank
Yep.
you for that.
Fantastic. Now, number D. A buyer's information notice has to be attached to the Form 1.
Oh,
True or false? True, I hear. Don't look very confident, Wisdom, do you? You said true, but you're not looking that confident. Are you confident on that? Okay, true? Yeah. Okay. Section 13A.
Regulation 17.
Okay. What act was it again?
LBSC. Yeah.
Land and Business and Conveyancing Act, was it? Oh, I'm glad you've confirmed that for me. And so the Form 3 is the prescribed notice. Now, we mentioned it last week, but we didn't actually look at one. So I just remembered to actually go and photocopy one for you.
Yes.
So we can have a little bit of a squiz at it.
that's Form R3, not Form 1. Form R3. And where does it say that?
Thank you.
Okay, so the Form R3. Okay, now when is it? This Form R3. We know we talked about consumer law and consumer aspects. All right. So this Form R3, a buyer's information notice. Have a little quick read of it. But the idea is to put the purchaser or prospective purchaser on notice about these things. So have a quick read of it. You can scan it. You don't have to read the whole thing, but I think you'll get the gist.
So, Bill, with this actual form, this is like a prescribed form.
Yeah.
And then would you just go in there and answer the questions, is there asbestos in it? And you'd say yes or no. Is it just a yes or no?
No. This form isn't something which we're going to be filling out or doing anything with it. Okay. In a normal situation, what you'd normally find is so many of you. All right, I can see you're all avid people of interest in property. Okay, so you probably go to open inspections fairly often. Okay, when you go to the open inspection, you'd normally expect the land agent to have one of these, this form, okay, available on the table. And if you're showing an interest, he or she is probably more likely going to give you a copy. Okay, it's to put the purchaser on notice to think about some of these things. The idea behind it is that thinking that most people, they don't. Most people in general public, they see a property and they say, "Oh, I love it. Oh, I want it. Want." But they don't think about practical things. Yes. They fall in love with something and don't think practical. Yes. And this form is really just to try and put the brakes on them a little bit, all right, and get them to start thinking about it. And you'll see safety, issues of safety, enjoyment and value. And we've got things here to suddenly ask themselves the question, could there be any asbestos on here? Maybe I might ask that.
So the actual prospective purchaser will ask these questions to the
Potentially.
So it's not going to be like this will be filled out.
No.
Saying that, there is asbestos on this.
No.
Oh,
No. This is just a buyer's information notice. So that's right. So you come to the property.
Yes.
And I've got my shiny shoes on and my nice tie and my red jacket.
As you do.
As you do, and I'm giving you my best smile and I'm trying to sell this property. And, this might be on the table. Oh, here's some information about the property. Might refer you to the table.
Yeah.
And it's just something for you to take away with.
Yes.
So you might get the brochure which has the property.
Yes.
And then they might give you one of these, or hopefully they'll give you one of these. They're taking reasonable steps to make you aware of it, and then you might go home and have a look at the property details, the nice fancy little program.
The glossy. Yes.
The glossy, thank you. I can't think of the word. And also have this, and you might think about it, and then these little questions, for you to the prospective purchaser think about. Now, in addition to that obligation, okay, Next week we're going to be looking at the Form 1, when I'm hoping I don't scare you to death. Okay, because next week's going to be quite a heavy session. It's going to be more me next week than you. This week it's all about you.
Yeah.
Next week it will be me taking you through things. But when we do complete the Form 1, this document has to be attached to Form 1. It's just another way of putting the purchaser on notice.
To make sure that they get it.
Yes. And so for them to think about. Remember, the whole purpose of the Form 1, when the Form 1 gets served, normally you hope what's going to happen? Once the Form 1 gets served, the cooling off period hopefully will start to run. And so during that cooling off period, the purchaser is going to be thinking, do I go ahead with this deal or not?
And then ask questions if it's got any concerns.
Exactly. They can then, this is a lot. Remember, the whole purpose of this is so that the purchaser goes into the purchase with their eyes open.
Right.
They can't complain later and say, oh, I didn't know about this, I didn't know about that, etc., etc. Right. In that 2 days for cooling off, they can go and get some advice about an easement, about something on the property that concerns them. Yeah. And if they're not happy with it, they're out of the deal. But this is just another way of putting the purchaser on notice.
This is just a form. So this, sorry, I'm just thinking I'm trying to pose this question. So when you go into a property, this is going to be in the property so that anyone that comes through looking at the property, they can pick it up.
That's right. Normally you would expect a good real estate agent to have it on hand.
Right. Is there a legal requirement that he must have it on the property?
Well, look what 13A. Let's have a look at what 13A says in your notes, and you'll see. I think if you look at what it says, they have to take reasonable steps to make it available.
Reasonable steps.
I think 13.1. Given to purchaser when they're invited onto the land, and reasonable steps are taken for that. And then under subsection 3 of 13A, I think that it's a requirement for it to actually be attached to the Form 1. Does that kind of make sense? We don't have to do anything with this. All we need to do is attach it to the Form 1 when we prepare it. And we have to remember to do that. Okay? But it's not like we're filling this out.
So no one has to fill this out. It's
No.
just a matter of, it's up to me to ask these questions and then as a purchaser.
That's right. But look, the purchaser doesn't have to ask any questions.
No, but if you want to, then it's up to me to do it.
Yeah.
I'm not going to say,
absolutely.
You're not going to say, there's actually asbestos on here, or there's, there's something to do with the swimming pool. It wasn't in compliance or something like that.
No, but it's really making the purchaser aware. Oh, it's got a swimming pool. So, if there's a swimming pool, are there other safety barriers there? I better go and look out in the garden. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? It's not legalistic. This is just to raise the potential purchaser's awareness. Yeah. All right.
Okay, thank you.
Everybody got that?
Yeah, lovely.
Okay, great. So look, I'll just give you a few more minutes, and then we'll go through the rest of these questions. There's a little bit more to the rest of them. Distant students, have a go at the rest of them, and we'll be going through the answers again shortly. Okay, so let's have a look at question 2 that we've got here. Julio has just signed a contract to purchase his first home. The AXA contract was used. His friend Walter has told him he may need insurance. He's sceptical about this, as he doesn't even own the property yet, and he also doesn't want to spend any money. Referring to the contract, does he need insurance? Yes. I hear yes. And the contract, what tells us this?
Risk.
What clause in the contract did you say?
Risk.
Risk, yeah. What clause is that?
10.
Clause 10, do I hear?
Yes.
Fantastic, on page 19. Thank you, Giddish. And what does it say?
The land shall be at the risk of the purchaser from the date of this contract, and the vendor must use the land with reasonable care while the vendor is in occupation or has the use of the land.
Thank you. So you're quite right. The land shall be at the risk of the purchase from the date of this contract. Where's the date of this contract specified? Anywhere? Anybody? Where's the date of this contract? Any reference to that in this contract?
Page 8.
Page 8, I hear. What's happening on page 8? I hear somebody mention.
Execution page, isn't there?
On,
Signing page?
on the execution page, I hear somebody saying. What's happening on there? Let's have a look at page 8.
Signing page.
Signing page.
Date of this contract,
Where's that?
right up the top.
Right at the top of the page, yeah, we've got the date of this contract. Now, presumably, we'd normally expect the date of the contract would be when the last of the two parties signs it, but that's not spelled out. But this contract does have a set entry point where we can put the date there. So that's obviously, that follows on from there. So the answer which you all came up with was yes, because the risk is at the purchaser. So they're best to actually ensure they've got some cover, just in case the unfortunate damage to the property or whatever. Yeah.
So, the wording, how I understood at the front, is that he doesn't need insurance, but he should have insurance.
Okay. Well, look at the wording. The land shall be at the risk of the purchaser from the date of this contract. So clause 10. Yeah. The land shall be at the risk of the purchase from the date of this contract.
It's also on the front warnings page.
Yeah. Yeah, good. So the purchaser would be silly not to get insurance. All right.
Maybe I've got a question. He's got the option to be silly.
We've got the option to be silly, but, for the sake of a phone call, which isn't really going to cost them anything, they'd be very silly not to do it.
What kind of insurance are we referring to here?
The built property, potentially, specifically the building.
Building.
Yeah.
Not
But-
it's the contents, you can't put
No,
contents in this one.
So we're talking about building insurance.
Yeah.
But the bank won't give you a loan without building insurance.
Yeah, but we're not even getting to that stage yet. This is just to cover you until they actually become the purchaser. So the bank are only going to give you approval to get. When you apply for the bank are going to say, yes, we'll lend you or we won't lend you. That's what finance approval is. And then it would be expected at settlement that when the ownership passes, that they'll want that proof that you've got the insurance. But that's another issue. This is about from the time you sign the contract.
You can get a
You've-
cover note, isn't it?
Cover note.
I didn't know that.
When you purchased your property, you didn't get a cover note.
No.
Oh.
Well, I signed. It was overnight. It
Yeah.
happened overnight.
Yeah.
And the bank approved and everything was done.
Right.
Overnight.
What context are we talking here, though, Despina?
Yeah, mine was a bit different. It didn't happen that way.
No, but just take a step back for a moment. Forget the bank for a moment. This is just from you as a purchaser. So when you sign this contract,
As
the
in
contract.
when I paid my deposit.
No,
holding off?
no,
This
no.
is signing the contract.
Yes. So when you're signing the contract, step one, you've seen the property and you say, "Oh, I love it. This is fantastic. Yep, I'm up for it. I'm offering $400,000 or whatever it is," and the vendor says, "Yep." We sign the contract.
Yeah.
So when we sign the contract,
Yeah.
that point,
Yeah.
good practice is to get on the telephone to your insurer and say, "Look, I'm just signed a contract to buy this property. I'd like to get a cover note, please, for the property." Yeah. No. Well,
No,
that's
because when I signed the contract to say, yep, money, whatever,
Yep.
yep, no worries. I signed the contract. I was at work, so everything was done by email and
Yeah.
night.
yeah.
No.
But-
This is before
yeah.
calling off. Signed the contract. Accepted the offer. Yes, they signed electronic sign. I electronic sign. I didn't even get to leave work, and I emailed the bank and told them, sign the contract. Here's the contract.
Yeah.
Was it Australian
So-
title?
No.
No. So what was your point? When did you get your insurance?
I presume when the loan was done.
Well, okay. Well, you may very well have, but at some point you got building insurance for your property, didn't you? You rang up your local insurance.
Some agents will.
Yeah, it was already
Some
done
agents will do if you
with pre-approval and everything.
Right.
I was ahead of schedule.
Right.
then.
Okay. Well, when you got your insurance,
Yeah.
it sounds like you may have got it a bit later. Okay. I don't know. and don't think you actually are quite clear on when you got your building insurance on the property. You might, when it's out of interest, you might want to check that out, and you can usually look at your insurance policy and see when it started, what date it started.
It started the day I got the key, settlement.
Okay, so you didn't get any insurance prior to settlement. Okay, best practice is to get insurance, to get yourself a cover note, just in case. And let's be honest, 999 times out of 1,000, there's not going to be any problem. But what you've got to think about is, what if? And this is a big purchase. All right. Now, I didn't go into this with you last week because I didn't want to actually muddy the waters. Okay. There is, and this is a very unusual situation, but the standing point, which I want to, before I even reveal this to you, okay, the standing point is when you sign the contract, it's best to get a cover note straight away. Okay. Now, some people will say, oh look, calling off is 2 more days. I don't need to get it straight away. Okay, then make sure you get it before you get the cooling off goes. Okay. If you're not going to call off, you make sure you get the insurance cover before that calling off goes. Essentially, all right? Now, under the Federal Insurance Contracts Act, okay. And now before I go into this, under the Insurance Contracts Act, the Federal Insurance Contracts Act, there is a provision in there where a purchaser can actually claim under the vendor's insurance. Even though they're not a party to the contract, there is a provision there where the purchaser can claim under the vendor's insurance on the property. Okay. Now, I don't talk about this very often because what you sometimes find is suddenly a purchaser thinks, I know my law. Oh yeah, I don't want to spend the $70, from signing the contract until settlement. If I get the insurance early, or usually the cover note for a month is free anyway. So, I don't want to spend the $70. I'm a tight so-and-so. So I know my law. I remember that class back with the bold fella 20 years ago. I'm going to save myself some money. However, and this is what, there's a theory called chaos. And if you get a tight purchaser, okay, who thinks he's going to save himself $20 or $30 by trying to use this kind of loophole, the chances are you're going to have a very tight vendor. Okay? And what the purchaser doesn't realise, even if they try and claim, is that the vendor might suddenly be quite aware of this clause 10 and say, the risk isn't mine anymore. You know what I'm going to do, don't you? I'm going to cancel my insurance. And so then the purchaser's got nothing to claim on it anyway. Alternatively, the vendor's insurance might be invalid in the first place anyway because they may have made some misrepresentations. So regardless of the law, one risk occurs on signing the contract, the purchaser should get a cover note. Simple as that. It's not hard. Quick phone call, ring up the insurance company, get a cover note. You're still awake on me or not? Okay.
Yeah, I was considering that was interesting. So you're saying there's a possibility if you didn't get insurance between
signing the contract
and the cooling off, if
settlement,
if it did go wrong, there's a small possibility that the purchaser might be able to claim the vendor's insurance, but that's problematic.
Thank you. The word yes, good. That's a very good word to use. Problematic, absolutely, because the purchaser has got no control. The vendor may cancel their own insurance policy. The vendor's insurance policy might be totally inadequate. And in ordinary speaking, it's only because of an act of Parliament that the purchaser has the ability under that legislation to claim under the vendor's insurance anyway. Yeah, it's not okay? It's not. So regardless of the law, the best practice is to get a cover note as soon as the contract is signed. Okay?
So normally, if the vendor doesn't cancel their insurance would be valid until the cooling off period.
No, usually to the settlement you'd normally expect.
The vendors.
Yeah. So the purchaser can, according to the law, the purchaser can claim under the vendors. But I don't want you to get stuck on this.
Yeah,
It's very problematic.
Yeah.
And there's always the chance that the vendor will cancel their insurance policy. Yeah. There's always the chance that the vendor's insurance policy will be invalid for whatever reason. Okay, next one. We've got, he also wants to know who has to pay for the stamp duty on his purchase. He is concerned, as he understands that it could be quite a lot of money. Oh, dear me, stamp duty. Oh, let's not get on to stamp duty, but what's the answer? Purchaser pays. What was that? 20.7. 20.6. Page 20.6. Clause 20.6, page 27.
Yes.
Fantastic. Thank you. The purchaser must pay all stamp duty payable in connection with this contract. Fantastic. Next one. Okay. See, he has also complained that you need a degree to understand some of the words in the contract and doesn't understand what encumbrance means. What does the AXA standard contract say about this? What clause are we talking about here?
Page 10.
Page 10, I hear.
1.1.
1.1, clause 1.1. Definitions. And how is encumbrances described?
Any mortgage.
Mortgage, lien, charge, security interest, lease, tenancy agreement, caveat, notice, order or other interest.
Yeah, okay, great. And in many respects, think of encumbrance as a charge on the land. And note clause 3.1b3, because the land is sold subject to these. Okay.
3.13 was it?
3.1b.
B.
Yeah, and subsection 3 in clause 3.1b. You'll see the land is sold subject to these. Okay. Now, we've got number 3. Meanwhile, Shakira has just signed a contract to sell her property at Sunnydale. She is very pleased with her agent, Juan Romero, who found a buyer above what she was asking for. The house is sold for $900,000. The purchase conveyancer believes that they will need to withhold 12.5% of the purchase price, which is $112,500. Shakira has asked you to handle her conveyance and is confused by this. Now, the topic which we need to talk about here is what?
Capital gains withholding.
Good, capital gains withholding tax. And the first thing we need to do, Bo, is to look at what?
Clearance certificate
Hold on. Now, I am picking on Bo for a reason. The first thing we need to look at, Bo, is what?
It's whether the seller is a foreign resident.
No, hold on. We'll come back to what you said to me earlier.
What kind of property is that?
What kind of property is this being sold? What's the definition of property covered by this? Property covered under the capital gains withholding tax includes what?
Everything.
Everything I hear. It's very wide, isn't it? What's the definition? What we got here? It includes.
Vacant land, buildings, residential, commercial properties, leaseholds, strata, titles.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah. So vacant land, buildings, residential and commercial property, leaseholds and strata title schemes. So it's very wide. So we can only assume that it's likely to apply to Shakira's property, isn't it? Yeah. The second thing, which the other qualification is what?
tax clearance or tax.
No, the second thing to invoke this capital gains issue, the price. How much was that, Julie?
A market value of $750,000 or more.
750,000 or more. And in this scenario, is it over 750,000?
Yes.
It is. So we've got both of those appear to have been met. So the next question we need to ask is about Shakira, isn't it? What do we need to ask about Shakira?
Whether you are a foreign resident or not.
Whether you are a foreign resident or not. Thank you. So let's assume she's not a foreign resident. If she's an Oz resident, what are you going to recommend happens here?
Get a CC.
Good. Apply for a clearance certificate. Yeah. And to do that, when should she do that?
As soon as possible.
As soon as possible. Yes, she hasn't done it already. Absolutely. And she once the clearance certificate has been approved, assuming it is, what would she then need to do?
Give it to her conveyancer.
Yep. Who will then do what with it?
To the vendor's conveyancer.
To the
The
purchaser's conveyancer.
yeah.
Okay, good. So, and if that's the case, then they won't be required to withhold the 12.5%. The other question, the other point is, if she is what? Alternatively, instead of being an Oz resident, she might be a
foreign resident.
And so if she believes that the 12.5% capital gain is much too high, what could she as a foreign resident do?
Ask for a reduction.
Ask for a reduction, yeah. Ask for a reduction. And essentially it's called a variation, okay? And so if she thinks she's actually had a loss, she'd have to get all her accountant to get all the details together and put an application in to the ATO for a variation, hopefully a reduction on what they're after. Does that make sense?
A loss on her income for the year, is that what you mean?
No, it would be a loss on the purchase of the property. So, for example, if she'd actually paid $950,000 for it, or and she'd actually made a loss on the property, then there's not going to be any capital gain there, is there? All right. So that's what she'd be hoping to show the Australian Taxation Office, that she's actually lost on the property, and there wouldn't be a gain for her in the sale anyway. Okay, you still awake on me?
Yeah.
All right, great. Okay, now, the rest of tonight's festivities. We're going to get you to do this exercise. What I suggest you do is probably clear your table so as best you can, so you've got a nice neat table.
And then it happens in my house.
And then have a go at filling out this the contract. Now, when later in the course, when I get you to do an exercise like this, all right, and we'll do this before we actually have the exam, I will be giving you a contract for the sale of land, the full searches, which is a number of pages which you'll be using to fill out the contract, to fill out the Form 1s. Tonight's exercise, I'm not giving you the full searches, which are about 30 pages, so most of it is not relevant to this exercise, and all it will do is get you confused, okay? I've just included a couple of documents that may be relevant to what you need to fill out. The same with the actual contract itself. I'm not giving you the full contract. I'm really just going to be giving you the schedule, which is what you fill out, and the signing section. Okay? Because again, I want to keep this exercise is about practice. All right? It's not about you going through lots of documents. You'll get used to the documents in time, and you'll become familiar with them. But this first time, I want to keep it as simple as I can for you, okay? For the purposes of you filling out the documents. Distant students, these documents will be uploaded onto the... they will be made available on the Learn site, but what I might do is I actually might just photocopy the shortened version, and I might put them in the discussion room for you, so that you have got the same as the class students. Okay, so... class and distance students, what I want you to basically do is to have a go at doing this exercise and filling it out as best you can. Again, I'm not expecting you to get every section right at all. In fact, I'm hoping you're going to get 50% of it. All right? Because this exercise is really about you just getting used to it and a bit of practice. Okay? The next time, but don't laugh, because the next time you do the similar exercise, I'll be getting you to do an exercise just like this again. I'll be expecting you to get about 75% of it right. And then by the time you do the same exercise when you have the assessment, guess what?
100.
100, thank you. All right. Okay.